This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad and live today. Whether it's the literal floodwaters of a storm like Hurricane Harvey or the figurative floodwaters of our complicated lives, I think we can all agree that we've been there before. We've all felt helpless to these storms that swirl around us, those things that squeeze us tighter and tighter, making it feel as though we can't even catch our breath. We have absolutely no control over the situation at hand. We need help quickly before the waters rise to a level that totally consumes us. Now, our psalm for today speaks of a situation just like the one we hypothesized. Psalm 69 is thought to be written around the time of 587 BC, at the time of the fall of Jerusalem. The city was ransacked by the Babylonians, and the people were taken captive and exiled to Babylon. Talk about the floods rising. It probably felt like the dam broke and the whole city was washed away. The people no longer had homes and possessions. Families were probably separated from each other, and they'd find themselves living in captivity in a country that they couldn't even call their own. Any prosperous lifestyle that they might have experienced before was now in that rear-view mirror, getting more distant by the day. We hear the psalmist say, "Save me, O God! Save me, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire, where there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters, and the floods sweep over me. I am weary with my crying, my throat is parched. My eyes grow dim with waiting for my God." If there really was a valley of the shadow of death, the author and his people were certainly now in it. Johnny Cash is one of my favorite recording artists, and one song that particularly strikes me as being relevant for today's message is the classic hit 5 Feet High and Rising. Now, it begins at the 2-foot level of flood stage. He starts with a question. He says, "How high is the water, Mama?" 2 feet high and rising. We can make it on the road in a homemade boat. That's the only thing that we got that will float. It's already over the wheat and the oats. 2 feet high and rising. Then he goes to the next stage, the 3-foot level. He says, "The chickens are sleeping in the willow trees. Cows in the water at past her knees." 3 feet high and rising. Then the 4-foot flood stage. "The bus is going to take us to the train. Looks like we've been blessed with a little more rain." 4 feet high and rising. And then finally, the 5-foot flood stage. "Well, the rails are washed out north of town. We got to head for higher ground. We can't come back till the water goes down." 5 feet high and rising. Now, isn't this how we experience the floodwaters in our lives? It's raining and I'm getting wet. No problem, I'll just pop open an umbrella and stand underneath it. Okay, now the water, it's pooling down there at my feet. Hey, no problem, I better move to drier land. Now, these early stages of floodwaters, we can maneuver around. We can handle these things ourselves. But as things start to add up, we begin to lose control. Our options are few and far between, and pretty soon we discover that we're in quite the predicament. We're overwhelmed with the problems, and our lives are now in critical mode. We need help, and we need it now. The only thing left for us to do is to cry for help in our moment of despair. And that's why I find some assurance within this psalm. Because this psalm reaffirms the position that humanity has been getting up to their neck in problems for many, many years. Well, at least for 2,600 years. So this is not something new or unique for us or the current generation. And if the psalmist and the Jewish people could call on God and count upon Him in their darkest moments, then I think that God hears us in our times of crisis when we need Him the most. People have not changed over time, and I place my confidence in the fact that our God has not changed as well. He continues to be benevolent and merciful, full of grace and forgiveness and love. As it says in verse 16, "Answer me, O God, for thy steadfast love is good. According to thy abundant mercy, turn to me." No matter how bad things get, the the floods will not consume us completely. For God's heart is tuned to his people. When that water is rising, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 or 5, turn to God. He is there for you. He's that oversized beach towel to dry off with. He's that canoe to transport you to calmer waters. He's that flotation device to keep your head above the water. No matter what stage of water flooding that you find yourself in, God is there. From the small and trivial to the severe and extreme. Nothing surprises God. He has experienced it all himself. He's been there and he's done that because Jesus went through all of that as he made his way to the cross. So when we are down and suffering, when we are in pain and are troubled and scared, we can turn to our God in confidence that we will see the brightness of a new tomorrow. We will persevere. We will not be left to drown. We will find peace when we turn to our God in prayer and ask him to make his presence known. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus speaks to his disciples about prayer, and he says, "Ask and it will be given, search and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you." You see, it all begins with prayer. Talking to God, turning to him, letting him do the work. Let God be in control. Allow him to throw you that lifeline, to shower you with peace and mercy and grace and that buoyant promise of life that is eternal. For nothing will sink that promise, no matter how rough things get going. The turbulent waves of sinfulness and evil cannot and will not submerge the gifts of God found in Jesus Christ. These things are ours to cling to and to hold on to. For God meets us in the midst of our suffering. He meets us at the foot of the cross as he provides us with comfort and strength for our times of weakness. He provides for us the things that we need when we need them. In a world filled with hate and greed and pain and evil and suffering, God gives us the tools to navigate the waters. He might not remove us from the situation, and he certainly will not remove us from the world entirely. But he does give us what we need, and he is present through and through. Our rock and our Redeemer is enough to weather the storms of life and to provide a safe refuge for us until our stormy lives break with the sunshine that we crave. After spending days on end holed up in my home during Hurricane Harvey, and after hollering at my wife, Lindsay, "Hey, how high's the water, Mama?" And Lindsay responding, "It's 50 inches and rising," nothing felt better than walking outside and feeling the sunshine as it broke through the clouds and shone upon my face. Throughout the storm, I knew the sun was still there, blocked by the thick blanket of clouds that was stretched across the great city of Houston. When that blanket was finally pulled back, the sun shone, and we knew that things would be all right. May God's light and eternal sunshine penetrate the deepest and darkest moments of your lives. May we take comfort in the fact that even if we can't seem to find God in our lives, that he's still there. No tempest or storm can separate us from him. God will take us from our disoriented position and he will put us on that correct path. He promises to love and guide and strengthen us, all while leading us to that higher ground that we seek. Amen. Remember as you go about your day that yesterday is gone, tomorrow does not yet belong to you. So why not live today, knowing that you never walk alone? See y'all next week. Later.